Good morning, everybody. It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner, given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care, and being part of that team in 2023, 2022, and 2021, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 100,000 fathers around the world. Also, I am a contributor to the Fly Nubian Queen YouTube network, which has over 550,000 subscribers, and that channel is managed by Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins, big supporters of them and them of me, so I appreciate that. And also soon to be launched content creator and also member of the advisory board of Indie Soup Media, which is a new media network for independent creators that's going to be based out of the US, and the reach of that network is over 1 million people. So as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Ryan Knight is here. We didn't see him on Friday, but he is back.
Yes. Always good to see you, Dr. Vibe. And for those that now have forgotten who I am, my name is Ryan Knight, one of the co-founders of the Afro-Caribbean Business Network. We support entrepreneurs of African and Caribbean heritage, really to figure out what stage their business is in and then help them create a strategy to grow their companies exponentially. And I'm an entrepreneur myself. I run a company called Detailing Nights. So we provide mobile waterless car cleaning. So we go to people's houses, to their offices, clean their cars on the spot without using water, and our plant-based eco-friendly cleaning supplies. Always want to give a shout out to Liquid Green Solutions, where we get our plant-based eco-friendly cleaning supplies from, and a shout out to our youth entrepreneurs that work with us during the summer. So we are going to start recruiting next month. So February, we're going to be letting people register if they want to work with us in the summer. So if you have that child that is in high school or in college having difficulty finding a job, definitely send them our way, because we can show them they have the potential to start their own business and be an entrepreneur.
All right, let's get to some things. Our usual practice on, it's a good practice on Mondays. So this episode of the Morning Vibe is sponsored by the Macmillan Group, providing mortgage solutions one client at a time since 1999, buying, refinancing, or investing. Visit them at themacmillangroupinc.com. You have their phone numbers there. Canada, 905-813-4354, US 904-586-5636. And also we like to give them the courtesy too. We show here all their phone numbers. So there's Canada, there's US, also toll free 866-883-0885. Website address, as we said before, themacmillangroupinc.com, and also email address raycmcmillan@gmail.com. So what's been going on, Ryan? I haven't seen you in a little while.
Yeah, times are quite busy with, I guess you could call it grant season. Various funding opportunities are out there, and people have great ideas. And a lot of times I'm starting to notice, and my tagline for 2024 is getting our bank accounts to match our vision. And a lot of people have this great ideas, especially how to support the Black community, yet don't have the resources, don't have the funding to actually do it. And same thing with our businesses. We have great, grandiose visions for our businesses, but that bank account isn't allowing us to actually execute in an optimal way. We figure it out, we pull from here, stress from there, but if we actually have that proper buffer and funding to execute what we're thinking in a way that we need, I find it's a lot less stressful. So one is the grants, and yes, those are great. You don't have to pay them back, but also looking at types of capital like lines of credit, where it can stay there if you get approved, and you draw down on it as you need and pay it back, and it replenishes. And one thing that I'm noticing, a lot of business owners don't have business credit cards. They're still using their personal credit cards, their personal savings. So if you're out there listening right now and you're a business owner, first step is talk to whatever bank that you're with and have that conversation about at least getting, well, first you need a business bank account. Second,
yes, and a business, not yes, and register
first.
Yeah, let's go start with register business first.
Let's back up a bit. So make sure that we're registered. Then let's make sure that we have a business bank account, not your personal bank account.
Yeah.
And get that business credit
then
card.
Get your credit card.
You can have a bit of a working capital.
So we can't make assumptions because we got to realize people are at all different parts of their journey. Some are ideation, some are just getting started. Some would like to get started. Some are started without a business number. Some are started without a business. So we have to accept like people are at their infancy level.
And that's where knowing that first best step. A lot of times we get calls, and I know you get calls too when you're mentoring. People are just stuck. They have this idea and they just don't know what to do next. So being able to provide that kind of guidance. I know here at ACBN we love getting those calls. Sometimes they turn into counseling sessions, which that's why we always love having like David Archer on to talk about the mental stressors and how to actually work through things that are blocking you. But sometimes entrepreneurs just need somebody to talk to. And it's not so much about business advice. It's just getting things off our chest.
Just before we go on, just a few other things. Please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, please like the Dr. Vibe Show on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. To advertise your business, product, or service, please email me, dr.vibe at the drvibe.show.com. We have actually 2 sponsors for today's show. And then also join the Discord group, the Morning Vibe Discord group. Email me, dr.vibe at the drvibe.show.com. I finally was able to put Wayne Harris's top financial tips for Canadians in 2024 in the Discord group. And I'm posting some other stuff. I don't know if I've posted it yet, but there was a very interesting leaked memo from Google, how Google is going all in on AI, and they realize and they say, basically saying it's too bad a lot of jobs are going to be lost, but Google is going to be going in hard, and they actually bought a company that sort of is a clone to ChatGPT. I think they spent like $2 billion.
Wow!
So watch for Google going hard on ChatGPT on AI, because obviously Microsoft owns 49% of ChatGPT, and so Google is coming hard too.
Put what, 10 billion into ChatGPT, like something crazy like that.
So they're coming very, very hard with that. But so I'm going to say something. Go ahead.
Will.i.am from Black Eyed Peas. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you heard him talking about the investments that are being put into AI, and he's like, imagine how much money is being pumped into artificial intelligence and training machines, yet that same amount of money isn't being put into developing human intelligence.
Of course not.
And I was like, wow, it just takes a different perspective to realize where the focus of our society is instead of developing us.
You got to remember, we live in a capitalist society.
Valid, yes.
Money over people. Profits over people,
and
right?
From actions prove that every time.
People have to realize, follow the money.
Yeah.
Follow the money. It's a capitalistic system, so take advantage of AI, use it for your benefit, or even invest in some of the companies. Again, look at a company like NVIDIA, who is the #1 chip maker when it comes to AI. Could you imagine if you would invest in that company a year and a half ago?
Absolutely.
Your investment would have probably doubled or tripled by now. So we have to get more financial acumen. Richard S. Good morning, gentlemen. Richard S. was on Friday's show. And correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, you're developing an app to help in regards to PSWs, finding PSWs, especially for the elderly.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's Black focus or not. So Richard was on, and he was in hard on Friday's show. And nice. Perry Douglas, he was looking for investment venture capital, and then Perry Douglas jumped in on
Okay.
LinkedIn. So Richard, I called and left you a voicemail message yesterday, so I'm waiting to hear back from you because I want to see, he wants to get a meeting with Perry and myself to provide him some ideas, and as you said, what's the next best step?
Nice. Oh, that's great.
For the next best step, actually, to talking about entrepreneurs. Yeah, I've had requests in 1 week from 10 different entrepreneurs last week.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yes, so it's very exciting and
Yes.
enlightening to see what's going on in the bunkers. So it's been quite the week. But I have to agree with you, and I was just sharing with a group of them that not only do you have to have your business team, but you have to have your personal team. You have to have that team of support, that
Absolutely.
the non-business team to help you through the craziness of entrepreneurship. Are you getting ready for
I mean,
Friday?
hey, if I'm with you, I'm always ready. So for those that don't know,
We
Dr.
can
Vibe and I
talk.
will be on Friday. So the Whitby
Yes.
Chamber of Commerce, they are doing their Black History Month celebration. And shout out to those that were able to be at the Black History Society's brunch this past weekend. They always
Oh, were you
do the
there?
kind of the unofficial. No, I wasn't able to make it. Sometimes invitations get lost in the mail. I can't the Gala King can't be everywhere.
Well, you know what?
So,
I'm going to be totally open because I can't stand the word
mm,
transparent and vulnerability. Open, simple words, simple words.
yes,
I didn't even know it was on. I
it
had no
was the day of.
notification.
I saw it on the news. I was like, oh, this is looks like an awesome event. So
So that's how
I
much
figured,
we're.
hey, give them a shout out, but a packed house, so not like they needed us there.
Well, no, hey, I don't mind. Like it just goes back, and we talked about it also on Friday. Roland Martin did a great breakdown of how Black media in the United States is being, let me use the word, screwed. Let me put it that way.
Right.
And it's a great
Yes.
1 hour masterclass, and it's very similar to well, it's definitely similar to, it's exactly what's going on here. That
Mm.
basically he was saying that, well, it's a break. I've got to put the link in the Discord group, but he basically said Fox was built, has been built on Black people's contributing. Like again, the
Right.
OTT network Tubi is owned by Fox.
And I bet not a lot of people know that. And I didn't. And so when he put up Rupert Murdoch's face, I was like, whoa, because Tubi was this new, like
Yeah,
a lot of
but a
Black
lot of the
content,
program on it is.
right?
But
But the
again,
way that it had I actually thought it was owned by like P. Diddy or something. Like the way that it had so much Black content on it.
yeah, and he was even, and I'm rehashing a little bit of Friday's conversation. We're not going to go too heavy in it, but he was saying that Byron Allen, when he bought the Black News Challenge, approached him to do a show on that. And Roland Martin said the offer was so ridiculous. He said to Byron, "Don't waste your time. I don't want to waste your time."
Wow, that's
So
wild.
there's craziness of that. So good morning, Opal Inspired. Follow her on the YouTube as she does it creating. Richard S says we need a team to create our own investment firm to help our own kind. It shouldn't be hard to get funded for your company. This hard to get funded for your company. We should be taking care of one another, and we can do it. Um,
Well, we do
he
need
says, set up
to
another
identify.
meeting, brother. So let's change. I'm not, yeah, well, I'd love to set a meeting, but I need to know your availability, Richard. And then I need to know Perry's availability. Then we can set that meeting up. But I think this is where, again, I'm going to push back on to, and Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia, financial trauma. The whole thing, that's a whole other conversation. I think we may even get into it a week from today when we're down at St. Catherine's at Brock University. I think we can get into it there. So, but you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, just around understanding that there are certain platforms that have been built. So BKR Capital through Isaac Ololafe and Lee's, they have built a Black-owned investment firm. There's Brian Duarte with Black Tech Capital. There is Giselle Mello with Matter Ventures. So they do exist, but what we have to do is now figure out how to support those entities that do exist to invest in Black companies so that they have the resources to invest in us. Because right now, hey, they're all raising funds. I'm not sure where they are in their capital raise. I heard BKR Capital got additional funds from like BDC and RBC. So, and even there's a organization called Black VC, which started in the US and now has a chapter in Canada. These are the entities that can start rallying our VC community in the Black community, our VC ecosystem to build that out. And also, not a lot of our organizations are part of venture capital and angel investment groups. So ACBN, we joined NACO, which is the National Angel Capital Organization, so that we can start to understand how to connect our entrepreneurs to all this angel investment capital. There's a VC one, I forget the acronym, but it's an association of Canadian venture capitalist organizations. We need to know about these things so that we can plug in and understand how to get access to that capital. So Richard, 100%, there is some, but there needs to be more of a Black investment ecosystem happening around us.
Good point. Good point. So look who's you have not heard from a while. Office of Mr. Tim Frey, long time. Hope everything is well. Yes, hopefully you are well too. Good to have you here. Frequency Event Pro says congrats. I don't know what congrats to, but we'll take the honor. And it says good day,
We'll take
Dr.
it.
Vibe and Ryan. And Richard says that's the thing. Whenever you getting into the acronyms and all those things, nothing gets done. That's an interesting comment. The acronyms, all these acronyms, and nothing gets done.
Well, that's where we need to lean into complexity. We can't hear acronyms and then check out. We have to hear acronyms and then go find out what it is. Because if you hear the acronym NACO, and that stands for the National Angel Capital Organization, we have to go learn about it. We can't just say, oh, there's another acronym. That's not for me. It's like, no. These things exist to support business owners and business growth. So we have to understand what it is and go after it and insert ourselves in front of the flow of money that's happening around us.
Well, Richard S. says, I'm going to create it myself. Give me some time. I'm going to open King's Crown Investment Group. Just for Black people, I think you want to say. Just the 4 Black people. All right. So what we're going to do is, I don't want to interrupt Mr. Archer when he starts laying things down. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into a little quick break, 90 seconds, and we're going to talk about an upcoming event. Then we're going to bring Mr. Archer on so he can just flow. So you are watching The Morning Vibe on, almost the end of January. It's like flown by. It's just like flow by. I don't know where it's gone. Yeah, it's like, it's gone by. So we'll be right back after we hear from Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harriet Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harriet Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. No, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the, just people that, don't always represent the best of us, the diversity, like people like Dr. Vibe. Like, everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
Really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people.
Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. A lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back, helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
All right, we're going to go right into it. Frequency Event Promotions, a graphic design, advertising, and printing company that will be hosting a business expo for startup businesses in spring of this year, 2024. It'll be taking a place in the central Toronto, Canada, Ontario, Canada region. The goal is to bridge the gap and for startup businesses and the business community. There'll be about 60 plus vendors. They'll be showcasing their products and services. Pockets of networking will be taking place. Industry experts will be sharing what they know about business. So for more information, email info@Frequency Event Promotions. Stay tuned for more information. So there we go. And just give you the email address if you want to find out more information about this. That's where you need to go to. There we go. So that is, and I love that. One promo into another promo, just seamlessly. I love it. I love it. I'm getting good at this stuff. Finally, I'm showing some competencies.
Yes,
All right.
we'll have those commercial breaks that last 8 minutes.
All right. Two last comments before we get David coming on. So Richard says, let's face this, most entrepreneurs in this day and age won't make it past credit check or make it past the checklist of requirements that's going to be required in order to get these phones. I don't know. Okay. What I'm going to do is make it easy. All right. And also, it would be nice to see a community level of Dragon's Den in Toronto. That's an interesting idea. That is an interesting idea.
Absolutely.
Well, I didn't know enough organizations have these things, but one that's at a community level where, because a lot of people don't even know about some of these organizations. So that's an interesting idea. That's interesting. Oh, funds. Okay. So he says, in order to get funds easily, not phones. All right. Make sure you do your spell check before you hit the enter button. Okay. It's all good. It's all good. So welcome back.
One thing before we go, I just want to touch on, we have to shy away from statements around we're going to do things all by ourselves. Instead, we should tap into things that already exist and then add your support to it. Because if we're going to build things on our own, all we're doing is creating more silos. And we've talked like at exhaustion on this platform about that. We have to figure out ways to actually collaborate. And if that's something that we don't know how to do, we need to learn how to collaborate. So going off and creating things all by ourselves is not collaboration. Let's work together and actually amplify things that already exist.
Okay. We could have a whole show of this, but David Archer's kind of, I'm gonna put in my
let's ask him.
When we have this ongoing conversation, I understand where Richard's coming from. I understand where you're coming from.
Why do we always try to do stuff on our own?
I understand where you're coming from. I understand where Richard's coming from. Again, I'm a perfect example. How come I have relations with Black content creators in the US, but not here? How much time do I have to spend keep on going at it? At a certain period of time, you gotta go where your water is fed, and you don't lose contact with these other people. Hopefully they'll be ready. I hear what he's, and I hear the silos thing. I get it. But how long can you go for? You know what? We got to think globally.
But so
I hear you want.
Let's use this as an example. So we were talking, and I was telling you like, oh, you should be doing a morning show, and what I could have done is say, you know what, there needs to be a morning show. Let Ryan go off and just start one on my own. But working with you and being able to learn from somebody that's in it, amplified like us together, that to me is a better path forward than Ryan going off and creating a new podcast. Imagine all the content creators coming to you and saying, let me amplify what you're doing and start to build out an actual Black media ecosystem. We would be a lot further ahead. Instead, people just branch off and create their own stuff.
I hear where you're coming from. Ideally but we're dealing with human beings. And I also, again, trauma, repetition, symbolism. So I think, and we're going to stop right here. Richard, I'm going to come to your comment later because David's going to be waiting forever. This is the final thing I have to say. I hear where you're coming from with that, and I fully agree. But not everybody's ready to do that for whatever reason. And the thing is,
Right, and that's what we have to
uh,
break.
now, and I hear where you're coming
We,
from, but
we
how
can't.
long do you have to wait for,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes, and again, I'm a perfect example. When I did this, I said I needed a host. So I reached out there. Ryan said yes. So I'm not going as Dr. Taj, I'm not going to beg. I'm past the point of begging. So I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. You know what? I'm gonna do 3 last comments, then David Archer's on, because this conversation is getting rich. I think we have to do just
Bring them on and we'll do it all
we have
together.
to do a morning vibe show just on this topic and have people come in if they want to come in live or they want to put in comments. So Richard says, I understand teamwork is important. I understand the concept of rallying behind the same thing. That is to me, however, some of these programs you don't get unless you're a friend of a friend and you know somebody. Ryan Ray McMillan says, "Good morning. As a potential entrepreneur or someone trying to grow a business, the first step is to research resources. Very important. There are many out there, intellectual and financial." And then Richard says, I applied for a FACE grant after they received all this money. They sent me a letter telling me that I was approved. And then about 23 months later, they sent me another letter that I was not. Wow. Okay, we're done. Well, that's
remember, FACE doesn't give grants. So we have to be careful what we put out into the public. So by all means, if you said they were approved and then we're not, that doesn't fly. But also one thing, Ray McMillan, when we have him back on, we need to ask him about the start to his entrepreneur journey and how he was able to collaborate to really amplify what he was doing, because it's a great story.
And that was when grants were flying around the place too. So
no, there weren't any grants. They were
that's
all
what I'm saying.
loans.
There were no grants.
Yeah, there's no grants. Yeah, exactly.
So here's the final part of this conversation. Would many blacks go into entrepreneurship if there weren't grants?
I think.
Okay, I mean, we'll let you think. We'll let you think on that.
The drive is still there. I think we've been conditioned to rely on grants too much. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Archer, take yourself off.
Like for
David,
you are
with us.
You didn't get into business because there were grants.
So first, like, good morning. I know that I came in during this crossfire and all this. I want to let you all know that I come in peace. Okay, is that the reason why I'm here?
You need a mediator.
Yes.
No, it's all in love. No, it's all good.
Of course.
Yes.
You know, and just another thing, 2 other comments. Ray says, I think Dr. Vibe, they'd be more successful if they weren't, he said, if there weren't grants. Interesting. Richard corrects himself. That being said, they did send me a letter. I was approved for the loan, excuse me. And then I got a letter saying I was not.
Right.
All right. We're finished with the debate.
That happened to a few people. So,
all right. Yeah. So, Mr. Archer, how are you this morning?
I am blessed and doing my best.
Good stuff. What's going on in your world?
Thank you. It's good to see the both of you as well. So I wanted to just start off by saying I came back from Michigan doing the keynote presentation for the MLK Symposium for Allied Health, and it was a success. I was able to speak about the importance of MLK's message and also talk about the importance of us being able to create our own psychotherapy that's responsive to the needs of Black people and responsive to the needs of people who are oppressed by a society that just tends to, let's just say that the society is not anti-racist. And so we need to find ways, of course, I want to talk about what both of you are speaking here is that the difficulties that Black people go through in our society are unique.
Yes.
And I think it's in part because we are attacked differently than other groups. So when there's this discussion of we need to form groups together, and then there's a discussion of, and I'm simplifying it, of that there needs to be trailblazers who are going to go individually. What I'll say is that the good thing about being a human is we can walk and chew bubblegum. So not everyone is going to fall into one category or the other. I do have to say as well is that I do have a business. I am an entrepreneur, and I developed rhythm and processing to make it so that we can use an approach to treat racial trauma, because I didn't see nobody in Quebec talking about none of this. I didn't see no one in my country talking about none of this. And as I'm trained as an EMDR therapist, I'm the only Black male approved EMDR consultant in the country. So when I'm in these types of spaces, I have no choice. I have to be able to operate as a trailblazer. But at the same level is that even us having this conversation is because of community. It's because of people that I knew and connections through Dr. Vibe, through Ryan, and all of this. And so what I'm trying to say is we need to do both at the same time. I do have to say as well, though, that even though it may seem as if my topic of talking about trauma may be a little distant from what you all are talking about, it's actually related.
Oh, it is related. It is related. It is. And I think, and I don't think enough people are realizing how foundational it is.
Yes.
Right? Because one of the practices I'm going to start sharing with people is close your eyes and think of your world if you didn't have money. And then think about, close your eyes and think and meditate. What would you be, or where would you be if you had the money you needed? Right? We have to realize that our financial ecosystem is different than those who don't look like ecosystem. We can't emulate the other systems because our experience mentally, emotionally, don't even put the money aspect in there, is a whole different experience. And that's where the therapy and the mental emotional comes in.
100%. I think also because our introduction to this continent is directly related to capitalism.
Yep.
Is that our bodies were the worth of white people.
They still are in a lot of ways.
Exactly. You're talking about Fox and all these things. So our talent, the energy that we have, our music, we know that hip hop music, rap music is usually Billboard top hundreds and all of these things. I don't listen to none of that noise though, just because like, I do feel that in an interesting way, they've been able to use Black people's voices to be able to have messages that say they should harm other Black people. When rap music is talking about killing an N-word, I don't think that the music would actually get to the top charts if they're saying that they're going to kill a white person, for example. Exactly. So it needs to be that our system is focused on harming Black people, and we also need to see Black people in positions of power talking badly about Black people in order to make it so that we are permanently part of that worker class, or that class that is serving the needs of someone else. So I think that a lot of my clients who meet with me, because I have clients that are all walks of life. I have professionals, doctors, therapists, people that blue collar, white collar, all of these things. There is a common theme of that many of their stresses is because of their work, because they work in terrible jobs. Some people's jobs are not that good. So if we have a supervisor who's terrible, we're going to be stressed. If we have a manager who's exploiting us and not paying us what's deserved, we're going to be stressed. So although I am an anti-racist therapist, I also critique capitalism because there's something about how our worth is tied to our bodies and how the society structures us based on the amount of money that gets in the way. In a similar way, though, is that there are some trauma events that some of my clients have that are based on the fact that because they were raised in poverty, they have beliefs that they are not able to get the money that they need, or that there's a ceiling, or even that their gender prevents them from being able to have the amount of money that they need. So I want to explain is that there are events that have happened in our lives, whether it's by the society, whether it's things that happen to us in school, at our workplaces, that make us believe that our value is lesser than because of the complexion of your skin, because of how other people see you. And as much as these may be true, as much as many of the people listening may be like, yeah, that may make sense, I also want to encourage people to think about, as Dr. Vibe was saying, is Yes, that deficit may be true, but I want you to close your eyes and also imagine what happens when you heal from that. I want you to close your eyes and to also think about what happens when we find out that there is a way of being able to make it so that Black people can heal. There's a narrative that we can push that makes it so that Black people are constantly fighting. There's something in our society that makes it so that we gotta check out the verses, Swizz beat battles, and like they put all of these things into our culture to make it so Black people are constantly fighting against each other. Because if we have enough time to sit back, if we have enough time to meditate, we might get the opportunity to recognize our awesomeness. This is what I do for a living. And you asked about the entrepreneurship thing. It's that I find that this is the most well, I'm biased here, you know. I want to increase the amount of Black therapists that are there. I want to increase especially the more Black male therapists. Last week I spoke to one of my friends, Khan. He's the only other Black male Anglophone therapist in Quebec that I know of. There's only 2 of us, and maybe 3 if you count my reflection when I shave in the morning. Like, you know, like there's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of us. So we have a responsibility, yes, to increase our numbers. We have a responsibility, yes, to also heal from our suffering. But I also think that the solution is not entrepreneurs. That's not the solution. And the solution is not just capital on its own. Is that we need radical, different ways of being able to look at the economic system in ways that serve us. And we need a radical change in the way how we look at community. Otherwise, we will just make it that there's more academics who are completely disconnected with the public, more rich people who have nothing in common with poor people. And so we need to make it, in my opinion, we need to do an approach that is healing mental health and also addressing poverty, which is universal basic income. Okay? I just needed to drop this because, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That you mentioned that because that makes me think it's difficult to deal with when we traumatize ourselves. Like as I'm reading Richard's comments, it was an organization that was from the Black community that is causing trauma to entrepreneurs in the Black community. So now you already had bias and, you know, you feel like you have barriers up, and then you think that something is created that is now for us, and then you get hit again. It's almost worse coming from ourselves. So how do we 100%. Deal with now? We've been oppressed, and then we think that we're progressing, yet we start to oppress ourselves somehow. It's like there's nowhere to turn, and there's nowhere to go.
Yeah, you're talking about horizontal violence, that there's sometimes where the biggest enemies are the people that are around us or the people who look like us, and it seems as if they harm us. Yeah, and you're also talking about betrayal trauma. So it's like this. Dr. Jennifer Gomez has this idea called cultural betrayal trauma theory. And the basic idea is this, is that the person who's traumatized because of a car accident, their trauma often is not as disorienting as the person who's traumatized because their parents harmed them, because the closeness of it hurts us. And also the person who's traumatized by a white person through violence, let's say it's a Black person who's traumatized by a white person through violence, when the violence happens because it's one of your boys or because it's a Black person in your own community or your small group, it almost bypasses the natural defense that you would have towards being distant from outsiders. And so these types of betrayal traumas, which can also happen through institutions, which is what you're talking about, an organization also being able to cause some harm. These types of traumas increase the symptoms of what's called dissociation and make it so that we will feel outside of our body. We're going to like question, lose time and space. We'll be completely disoriented because our shield is up here, but we got attacked over here. You get what I'm saying?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
It's not in the, I think is Richard who said it. It's not in Richard's imagination for the harm that has taken place. It's not in any of our imagination that it seems as if for some reason we as Black people are under these types of stresses. But I will say that the people who experience dissociation in my sessions, they come to meet with me and they have had what is called treatment resistant issues, where they've been to other therapists and they said the other therapist wasn't assessing for the same types of things I'm assessing for, which is called complex trauma, etc. So then they come in believing I'm broken, or they come in believing this is an unsolvable problem, which is similar to how we see racism, which is similar to how we see this fracturation in our Black community. But what I'm saying is that with sufficient technology, we are able to help people to solve unsolvable problems with psychotherapy. So it's not a stretch of the imagination. If I'm able to help individuals, we can also help couples, we can also help families. And with the right technology and with the right focus, we can also help our society as well.
Okay, let me jump in before you two just dominate the rest of the show, because I know Ryan, and we haven't even come close.
I'm going to write down my question. Hold on.
We haven't even started our conversation topic, and I think I don't want to. Maybe we don't even want to go there. I think because we're on a good roll right now, because I know Ryan has more questions, but I have more comments to put up here. So Ray says, Richard's 30-second analysis is the reason we need intellect in, quote, in our community, unquote. There is no right or wrong way. Each individual takes the path that works best for them and their goals. I received that. Richard says, I think rap music was and still is the biggest weapon against our young people. And it's not just young people, by the way. Greetings to Dr. Dachi, as always, the host
yes, peace, Dr.
Media
Dachi.
Scope that is launching back up in mid-February, I think, going for the eighth season, I believe. It's on each Wednesday. We'll be on again on Wednesdays, 5 p.m. Eastern time on Instagram, 6 p.m. Eastern time Wednesdays, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and other platforms, and also the driving force behind Indie Soup Media. Also, we have another comment here. Richard S. says, that is absolutely so sad that we have to be careful of the people who look like us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a fact. And Doctor says, Tatcha's 9th season. I am corrected. Ryan, you have more questions. Go, because I think we're in a good flow here. So I don't know if we're even going to get. Maybe next month we'll get to the topic that David wanted to chat about. So go ahead, Ryan. You got more questions.
This is the topic. We're always on time.
Go ahead.
So I wrote down, and I'm curious your thoughts. What do you feel about millions of dollars being pumped into the Black community without funding the trauma, like alleviating the trauma that caused the money to be needed? So, for example, the banks have traumatized the Black community with their process and their systems. And this was admitted, and the reason that the federal government created the Black Entrepreneur Program, hundreds of millions of dollars created to now combat the systemic racism that's in the banking system. Yet nothing was done about the actual systemic racism in the banks. All they really did was throw money at the problem without creating an avenue for the trauma to be dealt with. So I'm curious, this has been happening over and over and over for decades with an issue happening in the Black community. They throw money at it, do some research, and then we're back at square one 10 years later. So I'm curious, is there a different approach that we should be looking at? Can we spot these symbolic things? Like as Dr. Vibe says, when it's just symbolism, how can we spot that and actually deal with the trauma?
I think that it's I will say that I do not know the specific answer for this. I will say that I can only give a hypothesis. I can only tell you what my thoughts are, but I will say that it's not that the trauma only needs to be healed in the Black people. It needs to be healed in the oppressors. If you're going to let's look at it in this way, is that part of my work is that a person will come to meet with me because they've been traumatized by their relationship. Or let's say, for example, that there's a woman who's been traumatized because of gendered violence from a man. So we can do this therapy forever and try to help every single victim, or we can find a way of making it so that we stop oppressors from oppressing. I think that there's something in the society that causes it so that gendered violence happens disproportionately to women. There's something in our society that makes it so that Black people feel as if they can't get wealth. Even if there's not a direct link that someone is attacking the Black person to make them believe this, every year when people are learning in school through history, they're learning that Black people were slaves. So the injury is not directly, it's not like directly linked by a personal experience, but there's something in our society that constantly reminds us to release the same old movies that are always going to talk about the fact that we've been enslaved, or that people, that violence is something that happens to Black people, and we internalize these things. So what I'm saying is we need to look at it radically different. In therapy, typically what happens, the therapist is the expert, the client is the novice. The client is praying that the therapist is going to come up with an insight that will change their lives. And so I felt that was kind of racist, and I don't like it. It sounds like white savior stuff, and I don't like it. So then I tried to think, how do we make an approach that makes it so the client comes with the insight instead? That the client is the one who's empowered, and actually that the client is free to say what they want to say. And so that's what rhythm and processing is all about. And I'm going to switch it over in this way and say a similar type of thing, is that how do we make it so that instead of it being that, because since capitalism frames the discussion, money is going to be the sole answer of just throwing the money at the problem without addressing the psychological aspects that are there. But I'm going to tell you is that there may be a way of using money in a technologically advanced way of making it so that people just generally don't have to spend money for certain types of things. I don't know any studies on it, but even though our health system is not perfect, if you speak to any Americans about the fact that if their child is sick, that they have to pay money to be able to bring their child to see the doctor and all these things. There was a lot of pushback initially when Medicare was introduced, and people were concerned that this is communism, this is all of these things, this is socialism, and this is bad for some reason, even though most Western countries are doing this, except for the States, and But I really think that we may have better mental health because we have Medicare in Canada compared to the United States. I also think that because it's the society that caused the injury, I think the society should pay for it. I think that our tax dollars can actually be put towards making it so not only is it that mental health is a basic human right, but that the people who are suffering the most don't have to pay for it. I think there's ways of being able to look at these things a little differently, although it would take away from, the military budget, the amount of money that we put towards destroying, facilitating, encouraging genocide and not speaking up when necessary. The amount of money that we put towards those things. I wonder what would happen if we radically looked at it differently and started to think that maybe instead of just AI, that our greatest asset actually is the individual intelligence, the individual well-being, or the collective intelligence, the collective well-being. And so I really think that in the same way how we are looking at technologies for therapy as being different, we also need to think, how do we make it so that we radically change the structure of our society? The reason why I'm coming up with these thoughts, I want to put up a radical book right here. This is a very interesting book that I've been reading by Lorenzo Camboa Irvin. It's called Anarchism and the Black Revolution. Because this is what I do on my spare time. So in this book, they're talking about something that was so interesting. In Montreal, and maybe someone will correct me in the comments if this is different, okay? So as you guys know, in Quebec, there's an English-French disparity, of course. Generally, in our country, there is this indigenous versus non-indigenous thing where colonizers just keep wanting to take land from people. So not all white people were white. We need to understand this as well, is that there were times when some people who are white in the 21st century were not white in the 20th century. And so some people who had white privilege now did not have it before. So there are times when there'd be certain groups, like for example, the Jewish community in Montreal, that wouldn't be serviced with youth protections in a way because they were seen as being different. So in their community, they made it their responsibility to help their people. They made it their responsibility to be able to help out their own people. And I'm sure in different communities as well, Italians and Greeks and other communities, they were able to do this. And without government intervention, because the government was not seeing them as deserving of rights and respect, they found ways of being able to help themselves. We as Black people also tried to do these types of things. It's just for some reason, they would just drive auto routes through our communities and cut our communities in half, or with redlining or other predatorial banking arrangements that you're talking about, they would just harm us differently. We don't have to talk about Africville. We can talk about it maybe another time, but just know that whenever we would try to set up our things, we would just get attacked in these ways. But although it's not always framed in these ways, what the Jewish communities were doing was a form of anarchism, and not anarchism in the way that people misunderstand it. Anarchism is just going to say that there's organizations and communities in their own that are not dependent on the government or not dependent on big business for their own solutions. So what I'm saying is that not that we need to follow everything that's in the book. There are some awesome things that are in it, though. It's just for us to know that there are alternatives to capitalism. We really need to just think about these things a little different. Again, I got people with treatment-resistant conditions, and then they come to meet with me, and it's not treatment-resistant anymore. That means that I needed to think about therapy differently. And then after I had to create something different, I tried, as I said, I tried to reach out to, were there other Montrealers doing this? I didn't know. I didn't meet anyone else who was doing it. Are there other Quebecers who were doing it? I didn't meet anyone who was doing it. Any Black people whatsoever in the country that are doing it? I didn't meet anyone who's doing it. So then I did have to connect, just as Dr. Vibe was saying, I had to connect with people in the States. I did have to connect internationally. And that was what helped me to be able to create a different way of looking at this.
I'm just gonna interrupt the conversation because I got to catch up on comments. So Dr. Tachi says, "Wow, I've never heard the term horizontal violence."
Yes.
Richard S says that is absolutely so. Oh, I already got to that. Yes. All right. So let's go further. There's so many. Okay. Richard S says this. It wasn't a 30-second analyst. This is the experience. I didn't wake up one morning with money. This took a lot of years, a lot of work. And I'm saying that I think we should find ways to make it easier for other Black entrepreneurs to get funding for the venture. Dr. Tachi says, honestly, I think that throwing money at the problem is hush money. Mm-hmm. The system on the whole is not interested in truly alleviating the issues. Oppression is profitable for the oppressors. Prison system.
Sure.
Some people would say for a lot of Black students, the school system.
Mm-hmm.
Hayden Morrison says, hey, good morning. Hayden says, hey, Ryan, could it be that the institutions have no real interest in our traumas? And then Ray says, class in session. It is important for Black folks to understand the evolution of, quote, whiteness, unquote.
Thank you.
Right.
This is class, but we are all teachers. We are all students because I'm still learning. We're all still learning. And we just need to move away from the hierarchies that are built in our system. And I think we can learn even more efficiently in that way. Yes, Ryan.
Well, seeing that comment from Hayton saying, like, does the system actually want to alleviate the problems? And I remember being in the roundtable discussion. So when this Black entrepreneurship program was created, they said, okay, this is what we're thinking we're going to do. And we're going to have community consultations all around Canada about it. And I'm in these sessions hearing entrepreneurs really pour out their experience with trying to get capital and being in this system. Yet after all of that, they still did nothing about addressing it. They're just like, thank you for this information. They put it into a report saying, like, this is what Black entrepreneurs say that they need. And then totally ignored it. So it strengthens what Hayton's saying, where they're showing us that they actually don't want to fix the problem. And then they're showing us that by throwing money at the problem, they feel they can really quiet us down. And it really does work. So I can't say that their tactics are ineffective. Their tactics actually work. Because when enough money goes out to the Black community, you start to see people calm down. And then those that get the money focus on what they're doing. And those that need the money still are struggling.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting because I'm usually not in the room to hear people talk about an issue to an entity that is saying, we want to fix the issue for you. And then that entity totally ignore everything that people said all across the country my brain can't process this stuff. I'm
Yeah,
like,
but
that's wrong.
before David responds, that two things: not all money is good money, and second of all, people are just so hungry to get the money they don't care. They're just happy to say they got money, and they don't realize the implications in the process. One of the terms that you have to realize, especially in North America, follow the money. Right? And I think especially North American culture, and I'm saying Black and a lot of non-Blacks, we're too passive. Right? People don't realize there's a big protest going on in France right now. People aren't probably not aware of this, but people do people know the company PepsiCo? Big company, Pepsi, Frito-Lay's, etc. Right? They have raised their prices, but giving smaller portion sizes of their products in a lot of French grocery stores. A lot of the grocery stores are banning PepsiCo.
Wow.
There's protests in France. They're banning PepsiCo. We have to realize not all money is good money. Right? We realize that they're offering the money. You don't look at the terms. Look, people ain't. Look, we're in a capitalistic system. People ain't just gonna give money for no and just say no reason. There's a motive.
Yes, I say watch the announcements.
Well, there you go.
Announcements and nothing actually gets done until you have to put so much pressure on
Ryan,
people.
But here's a better example for you, Ryan. What's happened to DEI?
Listen, people with the title diversity and inclusion in their job description, I pray for you. Watch out. All of them are losing their jobs. Everybody that I talked to that was a year ago in a certain position at a company with that title, gone. And it's more than 10 people personally I've talked to that are not at that company anymore and gone, and they had that in their title. Something's broke, and like you said, Dr. Vibe,
I know people from a year ago. There's a lady that you and I know who got hired to be a DEI consultant at one of Canada's top 5 retailers. She quit after 3 months.
Whoa.
And she is highly experienced.
Right.
She's highly experienced. And again, pay attention. And we got great people on here. Look what happened last year in America. The U.S. Supreme Court overturned affirmative action in colleges and universities. People don't understand. That's a ripple effect. That's not just to happen in colleges and universities. That's going to happen in business. And they're going to say, oh, how come you're doing this? Well, look at what the Supreme Court did in colleges and universities.
Whoa. Well, so I'm curious, what can we do when we're still feeling pain from things that are supposed to help us? Like, where do we go?
Go to David Archer, go to Dr. Alicia Watkins. But before David answers, Richard goes, Brother Ryan, but that's what I've been saying all along. I just don't think that the system and all the acronyms are designed to help us because a rich Black person is an opinionated Black person. Woo! I have a feeling you may be talking about someone there, but I'm not going to bring up a name. Dr. Chachi says, because these people were never interested in DI in the first place. It's all theater. And then this is interesting. Richard S. is all in the last few days.
You got to have him on the show.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting there. And when I say do it by myself, I don't mean do it by myself, guys. I mean team up with other like-minded Black men to build. I would say Black men and women. Thank you, to build something that's needed in our community, because we need to create our own financial group, which will make it easier for Black I don't know what super to get funded, because we all know the struggle. Okay. Now you can come back in. We're having a fun conversation today. Go ahead. Anything you want to add on to what I just shared, David?
Well, corporations are not superheroes. And when we expect that the corporation is going to solve our problems, that is, as you said about assumptions before, I think that it's a bad assumption for us to have. A corporation is generally designed in a context where competition is its reality and where it needs to win at all costs. So when we see that DEI was something that became popular, that makes sense from a corporation's perspective. It looks good for PR, and also it makes it so that people aren't too upset with them. I do think there were a lot of things that happened in 2020 to make it so that Black people wouldn't have their own anarchism throughout the entire globe and all these things. And so then there were a bit of concessions that were done to make it so that everyone lost focus. For me, is that I wrote anti-racist psychotherapy in 2020, and I didn't stop writing because the thing is, whether it's DEI, I didn't use that term for what it is that I want to do. Is that I'm just committed to finding out how do we eliminate suffering in the world. There are way too many distractions that we all have. People know, you're talking about these protests in France. People probably know more about the next basketball game or the next NFL like Super Bowl or whatever. I don't know if it passed already, whatever. All I do is read books and write books and play video games. I don't pay attention to all of that noise, okay? But the general idea is this. It is so easy for us to lose our focus. When we lose our focus through little handouts, through little concessions, then we forget what our purpose is. And when we forget our purpose, it becomes much easier for us to become swayed by the concessions, swayed by the distractions, and ultimately losing the good things that we can bring into our society. For what Ryan was saying before, I think this is what I was thinking while you're talking, Ryan. I'm thinking about the client that I have that's an alcoholic. So an alcoholic typically will come in to meet with me. They're doing something that's really harmful, but a part of them also wants to meet with me to get better. And I could tell them intellectually, I could say, yo, this is, stop drinking the bottle. Don't do these things. You could do this behavioral intervention. And they'll be like, yes, yes. And then they go back home, and then that emotional part of them is still getting triggered. That trauma of the traumatized part of them is still experiencing suffering. So they have no choice but to use the medicine to heal their hurt. That's what all addiction is. There's an initial injury that takes place, and they're using medicine to self-medicate. And we talk about alcoholism, it's easy. But again, the same thing happens with marijuana. People don't always know that people could be addicted to smoking weed as well. And there are a whole bunch of other substances as well. So we need to know that these cognitive-based approaches of being able to handle these issues that are very popular in DEI is that we're going to say, okay, white people, don't use this word when talking to Black people. Okay, white people, don't touch the Black woman's hair. Like, we'll say these specific things that are supposed to relate to decision-making. But the problem is actually in the part of the brain that relates to survival-based mechanisms. Racism is a trauma issue. We need to treat it in that way. We need to understand too that our society is traumatized. That's why so many people are coming to meet with me with the same exact issues, because they're drinking from the same water. So we need to have systemic interventions that are very different from what we have typically tried. And this protest you're talking about in France is going to make me think about MLK. Is that he's one of the people that I think brought up in my consciousness, brought up the idea of the strengths of protests, and brought up the strengths of collective action. So we need to think about sustained ways of being able to make change, but we also need to heal at the same time. We need to not only have a sword, but we need to have a shield. We need to be able to say we're going to make a specific change, but we also need to heal ourselves at the same time, or else we'll be vulnerable to replicating the same exact harms. And that's what a lot of this confusion and stuff is. A lot of this dissociation, we're all in our own silos is that we need to prioritize our health. And when we do that, when I help people to heal from their traumas, interesting things happen. Maybe it's because of me, but I don't always tell them to then, help other people. But compassion is the gift that keeps on giving. I don't always tell them that they need to end up writing books or end up supporting this other person in a different situation. But when they heal from themselves, their purpose, when they heal from their suffering, the purpose becomes clear.
All right. I just want to, so people may say I'm talking smack in regards to what's going on in France. I want to just show you the headline of a story. And this is back earlier on this month. Pepsi and Lay's pulled from supermarkets in Europe over price increases.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, how that never happened. And this and
wouldn't that happen here with, is it Doritos that
I have no idea.
Hearing because
But
they raised
I
it.
just want to make sure that I wasn't talking crap, but more comments here. Dr. Tachi is going in now. Corporations are only systems and often ineffective ones at that. The good of the company always supersedes the good of the individual workers. Yeah. She also says, I think that we have to come to the realization that the Black masses probably won't lift us out of our predicament because we are easily distracted by theoretical gestures from our oppressors. And it also says it will take people dedicated to solving issues as a collective with an attention span. She puts in capital and with exclamation, with an attention span.
Yeah.
And then Hayden says, don't we first need to understand that institutions or corporations benefits from our hurts and traumas? Black trauma is $1 billion industry, family.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's $1 billion industry. Richard S. Guys, all I want to see us as people to be great. That's it. And some of us say we want the same things. And if you want the same things, why can't we team up with the people that want the same thing and create something? Talk is cheap, and it's another people. I guess you'd have more to put in, but yeah, you know, what did Jimmy Johnson, former coach of the Dallas Cowboys, say? If you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk.
There we go.
So
yes.
Ryan, you're on fire. Keep on going.
Well, one quick thing. When we say that we're going to build stuff on our own and use our resources to amplify what you're building, that is a silo. So let's make sure our definitions are correct. You have resources. You have things that you can now bring to the table. Find those other entities that already exist and feed it in so that we can amplify it. What Dr. George Fraser says, we have so much economic power, yet is it dispersion? Like we're a network that's dispersed instead of concentrated. So yes, I know what you're talking about when you say, I'm going to do something, I'm going to find people that I know, I'm going to create an entity. That is a silo. We need to take your resources, find what's already existing, and pour it into that. We just talked about 3 entities that already exist. Reach out to them and use your resources to amplify that thing instead of doing it on your own.
I have a feeling I know what he's going to come back with, but I'm going to ask David this question. Now I'm waiting for his comment to come back.
You bring him on the show.
If he wants to come on, yeah.
Yes.
David, let me ask you something.
Yes.
There was a time that I thought the greatest enemy to Black people was racism. I don't believe that anymore. I believe the greatest enemy for Black people is trauma. What do you think?
So racism is just a tool used by capitalism. So I don't think that if we look at racism on its own, then it can be very distracting, because when we look at racism, it looks like it has our name on it. So then it's like, oh, this is the thing that really concerns us. But then everyone who's affected by racism, for some reason, they can't afford a house, or they can't afford the house they want, or they get blocked at their job, or they can't become a manager. They are underrepresented in terms of positions of leadership, which equal to power. So one of the biggest issues actually is the fact that we are unable to look at systems as operating in a different way. Let me say it in this way. If we're only looking at something from, I think it was Einstein or something, I don't know, I'm paraphrasing here, but it's like, if we're looking at problems from one level of consciousness, we can't necessarily solve them. We need to actually look at the problem from a higher level of consciousness, and then we come up with different types of solutions. If the problem that I was confronting was therapist and client problem, issue, then we need to start to think about what happens when we redefine what therapist is, what happens when we redefine what client is. And if we're looking at the problem as, I use words for my client, nothing happens, which is a a common problem. Many therapists will not admit it, but sometimes it's hard. Therapy is hard. I may make it look easy, but it's challenging. What happens if we then start to think, okay, maybe it's not words that cause the solution. Now we're looking from a different paradigm. And so what I'm saying is that, yes, trauma is a big issue, but trauma is not the only issue that is there. Maybe there's something that's in the structure of what it is that what made it so that our ancestors were stolen from their lands to be here in the first place. Maybe it is something about even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a critique. He was criticizing capitalism, but we don't usually talk about that. We're not supposed to talk about the fact that he was anti-capitalist, anti-war, as well as anti-racist. And he saw them as the triple evils and that they are linked. And although psychological freedom is helpful for us, although reducing the experiences of trauma is also helpful, I think thinking about, instead of us being like, why do we keep having these problems? We need to start asking the question of, yo, how do we cause a paradigm shift? Mm-hmm. That's the answer to the question.
All right. Driving the conversation, Richard and Dr. Tachi. So Richard continues. We are Black men and women, and we know other Black men and women. Why is it that we cannot pick up the phone and call other Black men and women and say, hey, this is our idea. Do you think you can support us? Why it goes back to the trauma that the doctor is talking about, and how do we fix that trauma? Tell me. Actually, pin that one for a second. Interesting. I won't say who it is, but a very good associate of mine. He had an idea, and he reached out to another organization to see if they wanted to collaborate with that idea. Wouldn't you know that other organization ran with the idea and claimed it as their own?
Yeah.
So, okay. So indeed, and the media industries need to stop regurgitating stories that only highlight Black trauma. Yes, telling these stories are important, but we know these tales already. Actually, there's a gentleman, LaRon Barton, when he calls the media portrayals of Blacks being killed by whites, etc., he says he calls it Black snuff films. He doesn't watch them.
Right.
He doesn't watch them. Ray says the challenge is with already existing entities. They are all not always open to new ideas and energies. So at times, the partnering isn't always easily or met with significant resistance. I'll go back to Germany, Dr. George Fraser, who told me this over 10 years ago when we were having a one-on-one conversation. And I said, Dr. George, what do we have to do to move ahead as a people? The first thing he said is, there's some Black people, especially some Black older people, that need to leave.
It's funny.
He said that there's some people that they need to go. They need to go. They're stopping progress. They won't let go. And and I hear that periodically from a number of people who are especially in nonprofit organizations, Black nonprofit organizations, saying the leadership is so steadfast in their ways, they won't let go, they won't do progress, and it's sad. It's sad. And again, I think that's a trauma-based argument too. They don't want to let go. Let's move forward. Hayden says this. Wow, quote, racism is just a tool used by capitalism, unquote. Please, 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 let's really think about what this actually means.
Yeah.
And then
I encourage it.
Question for David. In your opinion, is it worth for Black people to continue to fight systems that may never evolve? How do we do it effectively?
Heal from our suffering is the first answer for that. And for the other question, can we talk more about that? The three evils is that militarism, racism, and extreme materialism. Okay, is that, let's look at it in this way. One of the greatest resources that Africans had during the times of colonization was their people. So the Europeans knew this, and also the Europeans didn't have like the resource. I mean, all the spices and stuff that we love, and all the things that they love, like their seasonings for food and all these things, that wasn't all in Europe.
Addicted to sugar.
Yes, the sugar, exactly. All of the things, their teas and all these things, they had to go elsewhere because it's like, what are we going to do in this cursed continent? Is it really a continent? Well, anyways. So the thing is, one of the most important things then was to be able to steal us and also to bring us here. So racism is related to that idea of being able to generate wealth for specific types of people. In building up this wealth and wanting wealth elsewhere, you also need to have a very powerful military, because now you need to protect your borders. And also, if you need more resources, you need to be able to have the ability to reach. So this is the reason why, by definition, if you are going to see people as outsiders, you're going to need to delegitimize them first. And so there's a form of racism, or Orientalism, as Edward Said would call it, that needs to happen before you can justify attacking another person. We need to delegitimize people, then we can harm them. As you delegitimize, then you harm, then you can take their resources. And so this ism thing, this racism thing, the sexism thing, they're very similar, because these are socially constructed categories. Black and white, not really real things. The idea of what a man is and what a woman is changes depending on what country you're in. In some cases, to be a real man, you need to have a pickup truck. You better have a flag on top of your pickup truck or something in front of your pickup truck. These are things that you gotta have a big gun and all this stuff. These are things that change depending on what a real man and a real woman is. And these are ways of being able to make it so that one person is worth more than another, which is by definition what capitalism feeds on, because then you can determine what one person's worth is versus another person's. So just to know that this idea of violence towards others, the ideas of profiting, the ideas of saying one person is worth more than another, these things are interlinked. So again, it is possible for us to stay in conflict with one another and stay on the topic of why is it that Black people don't get along. We do need to acknowledge, though, that there are challenges in our community because of colorism, because of like racism within us, and because of the classism that exists within us. But just know that most of that is the horizontal violence. Most of that is the thing that the vertical, the person who does, or the class of people that does have more power, put down to us so that we would be distracted to fight against each other instead of resolving our issue.
All right, just so to catch up here, Morning Fitness IQ Cam, you are really late. KSFGYL RWFQ, you're really late. Don't worry, I didn't mention too long. And great friend Roger Dundas, Roger and Camille Dundas, the driving force behind BuyBlacks.com, the Black Canada's #1 online magazine, says, by the way, DEI is being rebranded as corporate wellness. The spin is on.
What's the job title going to be? Director of Corporate Wellness now? VP of Corporate Wellness?
The spin is on. The spin is on. The spin is on. Don't worry, you don't have to be sorry, Fitness IQ Cam. You want to be the executive producer, so you want to come in whenever you want.
Stuff to do. Whenever she can join us, we appreciate her.
Okay, that's it. That's it. Well, gentlemen, I think we're gonna shut it down on this because, again, we didn't even get to David's original topic, but I think where we went. No, I think this was, again, the audience drove the ship, and I just feel that we got another Archer masterclass. We got another Archer masterclass. Any last comments, Ryan?
For me, no. I always appreciate your perspective, David. And
thank you.
Hey, the more that we can infuse your expertise into the Black community, we are here for it. And yeah, thank you for being part of this conversation, because this is excellent. Really opened my eyes. I have a lot to think about.
Thank you. Well, again, is that this conversation only exists because all of you are here. And if you want, we can talk offline about how to break these silos, but to shift the paradigm. And also, I just wanted to say a final thing is that for anyone who's listening to this, once again, that you are a person of value, that you are a person of worth, and you're a person who also deserves to feel good. It's not that we need a fancy car in order to see ourselves as being worth it. It's not that we need jewelry, clothing, or any of those things. You are blessed because you exist. You're beautiful because you're Black. You're Black because you're beautiful. And I hope that anyone listening to this can strengthen their purpose and to stay focused and to achieve their wildest dreams.
There you go. Nice way. Frequency Event Promotion says, thank you, David.
Thank you.
Richard S., I really enjoy your show, and thank you guys. Make sure you
thank
either
you.
text me or respond to me, Richard. I'm looking for your call. Dr. Tati says, this was great. Thank you so much. And she also says, corporate wellness, what kind of rubbish? I was almost going to ask you to come on, Dr. Tati, but I said, no problem. It's all good. Yes. So, David, what's coming up for you next?
So I will be releasing the book, Transforming Complex Trauma, Reflections on Anti-Racist Psychotherapy, at the end of the month. I'm going to be arranging for a book launch, a virtual thing, so stay tuned on all of those fronts. And also, I'm working on developing the evidence base for rhythm and processing, so that this is something that will
That's
be
what we're going to talk about today, but we didn't get to it next month.
Yeah, not a problem. And we need to, because we need to think of how to make it so that people can heal in their own communities. Not a lot of people know that transformative change can happen. If I see 4 clients, I'm going to get 4 transformative experiences that happen with them, because my paradigm is different. And that's why it's not only that I want therapists to know there's a better way of being able to treat these treatment-resistant issues. I want activists also to know that there's a way of being able to heal this racial trauma. But ultimately, I want to make it so that if my son ever needs to see a therapist, that he can meet one that can help him to believe that he could change the world. So we need as many people to know that change is possible. We need as many people to know that we are the technology. AI is very nice, but there's technology within us that can help us to heal from things. And that's what I'm spending my time working on. So stay tuned. There's going to be more blessings to come.
Is AI not learning from us? We are the ones teaching it.
Okay. So the McMill Group says, great conversation. Thanks, David. Richard, I'm waiting for your email, man. I emailed you and send me your number and contact information. Well, I just checked my email. Richard, I emailed you at 7:59 on Friday evening. So you may want to check your spam. So I'm looking for your response. I'm hitting the ball back from the ping pong table. And Ray says, congratulations. And Frequent well said, David. So as always, David, we'll be chatting. David and I had a long, deep conversation last week. Offline, it was really good. And hopefully I provide the anti-racist psychotherapist. I hope I provided him some clarity, because we all need clarity. Yes. And looking forward to more and wonderful things to come. So as always, David, to you and your family, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourselves grace.
For real. Many blessings.
All right. Peace. All right. Another great conversation, man. This is off the charts as per usual. Absolutely. What you got going on for the rest of the week?
I just want to really thank the audience. The input is excellent. The rest of the week, as I said, grant season. So the Foundation for Black Communities, their grant is due February 1st. So we're going to try and have office hours for people that need to ask questions, because there'll always be that last rush of late, or I guess just in time applicant submissions. So if people get stuck, we're going to try and figure out a way to support them. But other than that, looking forward to our conversation on Friday with the Whitby Chamber of Commerce. And then next Monday being with Brock University. So, man, this week is jam-packed. And Black History Month events have begun to bubble. So things are happening February 1st, 2nd, and 3rd that I've seen. You'll see posts from us about different events. But I know Brampton, their Black History Month committee is doing a flag raising and an event. I believe that's Thursday. And then the libraries of Brampton are all doing different independent events. So, lots of stuff happening.
Okay, good stuff. Yes. So next Friday we will be doing a replay, because Ryan, I'm going to find out what time I have to be there. So depending on what time we have to be there, we may do a show Friday. It's 50-50 right now. Well, we'll know, but that's why you follow the Dr. Vibe show on YouTube and you'll get the notifications. Then next Monday, we'll be doing a show with Phil Vassell, who has started a Canadian Black music archive. So he is going to be with us next Friday morning. And then Ryan and I got to get down to Niagara Falls, St. Catharines area real quick. So hopefully the traffic will be good. So and there's lots of things going on the back end, big time. So if you want to get in contact with Ryan, there's his contact information. I've also shared it on all the platforms except his LinkedIn platform that you're watching this. If you want to get in touch with me, there's website, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc., etc. You can watch replays of this epic conversation on the Dr. Vibe Show, YouTube and Facebook, Afro-Caribbean Business Network, Facebook and YouTube, and Ryan Oneil Knight, YouTube and LinkedIn. Let's also close it off here. Subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also follow the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. And also to advertise your business product or service on this show, please feel free to email me, dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Thank you for these spots today from, as always, the McMillan Group, our continuous Monday sponsor, and also Frequency Event Promotions. And finally, join the Dr. Vibe, or not the Vibe, the Morning Vibe Discord group, and email me at dr.vibe at the drvibeshow.com. Got one more comment here before we call it. Okay, Dr. Vibe, we are looking for a Black focus organization to partner for our expo already. We have reached out to a few. Okay. So I'll call me on the back end, call myself around the back end, tell us who you've reached out to, and we may even provide some other suggestions. Mm-hmm. All right. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, aim bigger, aim better, aim higher and wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourselves grace. Tell everyone about the show. Spread it out. Just don't follow. Spread the word. So we may be with you live on Friday. If not, you'll be watching replay, but we'll definitely be back next Monday morning. God bless. Peace well. Keep the faith and walk good.